Here we are. We back again in Mr. Johnson's class trying to make it entertaining because I understand, hey, we still at home, but once we get back to school, y'all going to see I bring the same energy that I do from the house also in the classroom. All right. So today we're talking about poetry and we're going to read a poem. A poem can be read. A poem is considered text. You have to understand that. You have to see that. We have to know how to analyze a poem because we have to break it down so we can truly get the correct meaning of the poem. Otherwise, there's a possibility you might not get the right one. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some different things. Based on the title of this poem, what do you think it might be? A poem for my librarian, Mrs. Long. You never know. A poem for my librarian, Mrs. Long, right? Let's stay there. Poem for my librarian, Mrs. Long. So we know that this is going to be for a librarian, correct? And also, while it's for a librarian's name is Mrs. Long. Where do librarians usually work at, class? Exactly. The librarians usually work in the library. Okay, so now that we know what it's going to be based on, let's look at deeper into even the subtitle. Okay, so once we look at the subtitle, you never know what troubled little girl needs a book. Okay, so is this going to be about a little boy? No, absolutely not. It says right here, a little girl. We comprehend little girl. And we understand that she may be troubled based on what we're seeing in the text. Never want to look further than the text and start making our own things. We just want to kind of use the text and figure out what's going on within it. We don't want to start creating our own scenarios because that's how we can end up with wrong answers. Okay, so let's just use the text and figure out exactly what we have. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this poem. I'm going to try to read it pretty fast so we can get to what we got to get to. A poem for my librarian, Mrs. Long. You never know what troubled little girl needs a book by Nikki Giovanni. At a time when there was not a TV before 3 p.m. and on Sunday, none until 5. We sat on the front porches watching the JFG sign go on and off, greeting the neighbors discussing the political situation, congratulating the preacher on his sermon. There was always the radio, which brought us songs from WLAC in Nashville and what we would now call easy listening or smooth jazz. But when I listened late at night with my portable that I was so proud of tucked under my pillow, I heard Nat King Cole, Matt Dennis, June Christie, Ella Fitzgerald, and sometimes Sarah Vaughan sing Black Coffee, which I now drink. It was just called music. There was a bookstore uptown on Gay Street, which I visited and inhaled the wonderful odor of new books. Even today, I read hardcover as a preference, paperback only as a last resort. And up the hill on Vine Street, the main black corridor, sat Carnegie Library. Mrs. Long, always glad to see you. The stereoscope always ready to show you faraway places to dream about. Mrs. Long asking, what are you looking for today? When I wanted leaves on grass or Alfred North Whitehead, she would go to the big library uptown. And I now know, hat in hand, asked to borrow that I might borrow. Probably they said something humiliating since Southern whites like to humiliate Southern blacks. But she nonetheless brought the books back and I held them close to my chest, close to my heart. I held them to my chest, close to my heart, and happily skipped back to grandmother's house, where I would sit on the front porch in a gray glider and dream of a world far away. I loved the world where I was safe and warm and my grandmother gave me neck kiss when I was on my way to bed. But there was a world somewhere out there and Mrs. Long opened that wardrobe, but no lions or witches scared me. I went through knowing there would be a spring.